my channel? Welcome back to another video. I'm Messy Jessie and you're watching. Yo, I can't believe it's already July because
this year sucks.
This is going to be my stats video where I look at the goals that I set for the beginning of the year before everything was
literally on fire
and see how I'm doing on my reading goals. I set my reading goals as a way to just track my reading. And to make sure that I'm reading with ethnic, sexual, disability, diversity, etc., as well as making sure that I read the kind of genres that I'm interested in, that I'm still challenging myself and growing. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to be rehashing some of the goals that I set in my video that took place in January. I will leave that link down below in case you want to watch it. You are totally welcome to watch that video and then watch this one so that you can kind of see how I've been doing more directly. But if you don't want to watch that video, it's all good. Also, what are we thinking of this look? It's inspired by Jules from Euphoria, who I am literally obsessed with. If I could skin her and wear her skin and become her, I would do that in a heartbeat. I would do that in half a heartbeat. So, as you can see, my psychological state is thriving. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about my goals that I set in the beginning of the year, giving you my stats for my reading, and then I'm also going to be evaluating whether or not I'm hitting or missing any goals. And lastly, I will wrap this video up by talking about my plan for action, my call to action, which is basically my plan for how to adjust my reading so that I am hitting these goals. I'm gonna film this video even if it kills me, and if I'm dead, I won't have to pay back my student loan. So let's talk about my goals. In the beginning of the year, I set goals of reading more comics and graphic novels, reading more audiobooks, reading more nonfiction, sci-fi, and thrillers. And also I set a goal of wanting to stop reading books for the hype alone, which I can say right now I have been doing, and my reading has definitely reflected that. My enjoyment of my reads has skyrocketed because I stopped reading books simply because BookTube told me to read them. So me picking books that I wanted to read regardless of whether they were hyped or not has definitely impacted my enjoyment of my reading year thus far. But let's talk about some stats because that's what you came for. That's why you're here. You don't care about me? Rude. I'm sorry, I'm really hyper. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know, my mental health has been all over the place in case you can't tell. And I feel really good today. Like I actually got dressed. I did some face art. I'm going to hot yoga later. I did my taxes. Late but done. Better late than never. Kind of like my period. This year I've read 56 books. I am not setting a reading goal. I did read 100 books last year, but I really don't care how many books that I read. I care more about the quality of those reads. My average rating was 3.6 stars, which I think is pretty good. Thus far, 73% of my reads have been by authors of color. 6% of my reads have been thrillers. 1% of my reads were written by a Native and or Indigenous author. I read 13 audiobooks, so 4%. 35% of my reads were library books, and I'm averaging 9 books a month. I want to make it very clear at this point in the video that I am not good at math. I am not a mathematician. I'm a booktuber for a reason, and it's because I don't have the mind for numbers, yo. Like, if you are on fire and the only thing that can put you out is me multiplying 6 times 7,
girl, you gonna burn.
You are so dead. I am going to spread the ashes into the ocean because that's the least I can do to honor you. But yeah, don't call Jessie if you need help with math. Okay, moving on. So 1% of my reads were comics, 1% of my reads were by an Indigenous author. I've only read 1 comic book this year, so I am not thriving on my comic book goal. Last year, 10% of my reads were audiobooks, and this year so far, 23% of my reads have been audiobooks. I have increased the percentage of authors of color that I've read, and it's only halfway through the year. Last year, 30% of the authors that I read were white, and this year, 73% of them are authors of color. So I'm already exceeding that goal. Last year, 9% of my reads centered Asian identities, and this year so far, I am at 6%. So I'm on track. Last year, I read 1 book by a Native author, and this year I've also read 1 book by a Native author, so I'm really not doing very well with that goal. Last year, 4% of my my reads were from Latinx authors, and this year 2% of them are by Latinx authors as well. Last year, 6% of my reads were nonfiction, and this year that percentage has increased to 9%. Last year, 6% of my reads were in the science fiction genre, and so far 15% of my reads are in the sci-fi genre. For the last two goals, last year 12% of my reads were thrillers, and this year 6% of them were thrillers. So since it's halfway through the year, I am still on track for that goal. And finally, last year 17% of my reads centered disabilities and or mental health, and this year so far only 7% of my reads have centered disability and or mental health. The goals that I am meeting thus far in 2020 are my goals of reading more nonfiction, reading more thrillers, and reading more science fiction. The goals that I am failing on are reading books that center disability and mental health, reading books by Latinx authors, and of course more comics, graphic novels, and also books that have Indigenous representation. Okay, so it's not horrible. Doing pretty well on my goals, but this is very helpful to me, like making this video, because it allows me to see what I need to work on so that I can adjust and be on track by the end of the year. So I highly advise you to make a video like this just so you can physically see whether or not you are actually meeting your goals, because sometimes it looks like we're meeting our goals and we are not. I thought I was doing well with Latinx representation in books. Yeah. So these are my calls to action. This is how I'm going to remedy the goals that I am not meeting. I'm gonna aim to read 1 to 2 thrillers each and every month. And for the next few months, I am going to be focusing on Native and Latinx representation in books, and also trying to make sure that the reads that are Native and Latinx centric also center disability and or mental health. So that way I can kind of like kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I don't know why we say that. You know what? I'm gonna change that phrase. From now on, it's kill 2 Nazis with 1 stone.
Why are we killing birds?
What have birds ever done to us?
The coronavirus wasn't caused by birds.
The avian flu, yeah, sure, but I think that Nazis have killed more people than birds. I feel like that's a safe statement, right? I don't have quite data on how many birds people have killed versus Nazis, but let's just say, for sake of argument, that Nazis kill more people than birds. So kill 2 Nazis with 1 stone. Moving on. I aim to read at least, so these are my minimum requirements. I can definitely read more than this, and I sure hope that I do. I would like to read 5 books by an Asian author, 3 books by a Native author, and I would like to read 20 graphic novels. It sounds really intense, but I know that I can do it, and I don't read graphic novels and comics as fast as everybody else does. I really sit and take my time with my comic books. I look at all the art and the paneling. I do a lot of research in author interviews to gain more insight into the story. Like, I do not just willy-nilly read my comic books. Also, my favorite fandoms are in comics specifically and don't have movie or TV show adaptations. I'm really excited to really dig deep into comics and graphic novels again. I said at the start of this year that I was going to start a comic book channel, and that is definitely on hold because I'm
barely hanging on with this one.
Okay, I'm barely producing content for this one. And also, I haven't forgotten about my vintage channel. I'm going to be uploading on that actually really soon. So don't worry, for those of you who watch my fashion channel, I'm going to be active on that again very soon. And finally, I would like to read 6 books that center mental health and or physical disability. So I think that's incredibly doable, especially since I've been averaging, what is it, like 6 books a month, I think? Where's my funking average? Oh, I didn't even put down how many books I'm averaging a month. Oh, no. Wait. No, I didn't. I suck. About 6 books a month. I think I can definitely read 5 books by Asian authors, 3 books by a Native author, and 20 graphic novels, as well as a handful of books that center disabilities. Let me know if you have made a stats video. Tell me how you are doing on your reading goals this year. I would love to hear how you are doing on your goals and what kind of books you would like to prioritize for the later half of the year. Even if you aren't a YouTuber, I definitely recommend that you look at the data for what you're reading so that you can see what perspectives you aren't getting in your reading and expand your reading to include those perspectives. Thank you for watching this short Bow Ties and Books production. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I would absolutely love it if you became a part of my bookish family. All of my social media links are in the description box below. Until next time, stay safe,
wear your funking mask,
and I'll see you in my next video.